In this video, I'm going to talk about a lot of things about strings, such as indexing and slicing in strings. And also, I'm going to talk about the addition and also multiplication operators for strings and their meaning. I mean, what is the meaning of, for example, multiplication operator for strings? And also, I'm going to talk about a lot of methods of strings, such as the lower method, upper, find, join, split, and strip methods. So please stay tuned. So first of all, let's talk about indexing and slicing in strings. So for example, here I can simply type print x sub 0, which means that I want to index this value. I want to see this value from our x variable, because as you know, Python starts counting at 0. So this is the value at index 0, this is the value at index 1, and so on. So if I run a code, you can see this is p. And for example, if I pass 1 for the index, and if I run a code, it gives us this one, which is the thing at index 1. So that's it. So this was about indexing, but let's talk about slicing as well. For example, suppose that I want to slice this. I want to print this slice of this string. So in order to do so, as you know, this is the starting point of our slice, which its corresponding index is 0. So I simply type 0 all the way up to this colon, means all the way up to. So this is the first one, which its index is 0. The index of this thing is 1. The index of this letter is 2. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I want all the stuff from index 0 all the way up to 7. So here I should type 8, not 7. Why? Because as we have seen in previous videos, this second thing that we're passing in this slicing is exclusive. I mean, it is not going to include this number. So if you want all the values from 0 all the way up to 7, here you should type 8. That's it. So if I run a code, you can see we have a sliced. We have printed this slice, this part of the string. Now let's talk about the addition operator for strings. So as you can see, we have defined two strings. So here, if I print x plus y, so what is going to happen? The answer is that it is going to concatenate these two strings. So actually, this addition operator is the concatenation operator when it comes to strings. So if I run a code, you can see we have concatenated these two strings. But now maybe you ask, oh, how can we, for example, have a space between Python and programming? It's very easy. So after this, we can simply do that manually. For example, we can type a space like this. So actually, we want to concatenate x and then a space and also y. So if I run a code, you can see now we have that space between Python and programming. Now let's talk about the multiplication operator for strings. So for example, here, if I print x times, for example, 2, so what is going to happen? The answer is that, for example, here, it is going to repeat x 2 times. So if I run a code, you can see it has repeated x, which is Python, 2 times. So here, if I pass, for example, 3, it is going to repeat x 3 times. Or technically speaking, it is going to concatenate 3 x's. But we can simply say it is going to repeat x 3 times. Now let's talk about some methods of strings. For example, suppose that I want to convert all the letters of x to uppercase. In order to do so, we can simply type something like this. We can simply type x.upper because you want to convert all the letters to uppercase. And now if I run a code, you can see we have converted all of those letters into uppercase. And if we want to convert all the letters to lowercase, we can simply type x.lower, and if I run a code, you can see we have converted all of those letters to lowercase. But now let's talk about the other method, which is called find. So for example, here, if I simply type x.find, and for example, here, if I pass s, it means that I want to find the corresponding index of this character, which in this case is 0, because this character, I mean capital S, is the value at index 0. So if I run a code, you can see it returns 0. But now I'm sure you're asking a couple of questions. And the first question is that, what if, for example, we pass something that doesn't exist in the string? For example, suppose that I pass small s, not capital S. And as you can see in this name, which is Sajjad, which is my first name, we don't have any small s. We just have capital S. So actually, we don't have this character in this string. So if I run a code, it returns -1. So if you pass something that doesn't exist in the string, it is going to return -1. And the next question is, what about, for example, passing j? As you can see in this name, we have 2 j's. So if you want to find the index of j, what is going to happen? The answer is that it is going to only return the corresponding index of the first j, which is going to encounter, which is this one. So as you can see, this is the value at index 0, index 1, and index 2. So the first j is at index 2. So if I run a code, you can see it returns 2, which is the corresponding index of the first j. So now let's talk about another important note. Suppose that we want to pass a string to a list. So what is going to happen in this case? The answer is that it is going to create a list consisting of all the characters of the string. So as you can see, our string has a lot of characters, and when we are passing that to a list function, it is going to create a list consisting of all the characters of our string. And also, if you pass the string to a tuple, you're going to have the same thing, but actually it is going to create a tuple consisting of all the characters of our string. Now let's talk about the join method. So as you can see, I have defined a list named x, and this list consists of some letters A, B, and C. And suppose that I want to join all of these letters with an asterisk. So I simply type something like this. I want to join all of them with asterisk. So I simply type asterisk dot join, and then I pass this list. So it means that I want to join all the elements in this list with an asterisk. And after that, for example, I want to store the result in a variable called result, and I want to print the result variable. So if I run a code, as you can see, the result is a string in which we have joined all the elements of this list with an asterisk. It's very obvious that you can pass other things as well. So for example, instead of joining all the elements of that list with an asterisk, you can simply type other characters. For example, suppose that I want to join all the elements of this list with an @ sign. So if I run a code, you can see we have joined all the elements of that list with an @ sign. Now let's talk about another note, and that note is that, for example, here, if I don't pass anything, so it means that this is an empty string. It means that when this code is going to join all the elements of x, it is not going to put anything between those elements. So here, if I run a code, as you can see, it is not going to put anything between these characters when it is going to join them. But for example, if you pass something like, for example, an asterisk, and if I run a code, as you can see, it is going to put asterisk between these characters. But if you don't pass anything, I mean an empty string, so in that case, it is not going to put anything between those characters, and it is going to simply concatenate all of those elements together. Another important note that you should keep in mind is that all the elements of this list must be a string. Otherwise, it will raise an error. So for example, here, instead of these strings, if I pass, for example, a list consisting of some numbers, and if I run a code, as you can see, it raises an error. So you should keep in mind that all the elements of this list must be a string. Now let's talk about another method called split, which is going to help us for splitting our string. So as you can see in this string, we can see a pattern. As you can see, all of the words are separated by a dash. So suppose that we want to separate those words from each other. So in order to do so, we can simply type x dot split, because you want to split the things in x based on a dash. That's it. And after that, I want to print the result. And now if I run the code, as you can see, it has splitted the elements, the things inside this string based on the dash character. And remember that this split method is like cutting this text, this string. So when we pass a dash to this split method, it means that we want to have a cut whenever we see a dash. So here, when we see a dash, we want to cut. And here, when we see a dash, we want to cut. And here also, we are going to have another cut. And based on that, based on these cuts, we are going to separate these words, and it is going to give us this result. And the reason I explained about that cutting analogy is that for this split method, you can pass another argument, which is a number. For example, here, if I pass 2, the question is, what does it mean? It means that, suppose that, for example, you have scissors and you want to cut this string based on the dash character. But when you pass 2 to the split method, it means that you can do so, you can cut using the dash character only 2 times. So this is going to be the first cut, and this is going to be the second cut. So suppose that you have scissors and you are going to cut this part and also this part. So if I run a code, as you can see, this is the result because we have cut this part and also this part. And as a result, we have these things. Here's another example. Suppose that we pass 1. It means that we are allowed to do this splitting process, this cutting process, only 1 time. So here in this string, we are going to cut only this part. So if I run a code, if we cut this part, we are going to get these things. But now I'm sure that some people are asking a question, and they're asking, okay, what about, for example, passing a big number, for example, such as, I don't know, maybe 400 or whatever. So what is going to happen in that case? So the answer is, as you can see, we don't have 400 dashes, and this 400 means that you are allowed to have 400 cuts. This is the maximum limit. This is the maximum number. This is the maximum limit. At least you can have 400 cuts, but it's very obvious that in this example, we don't have 400 cuts. We only have 3 cuts. Number 1, number 2, and number 3. So in this case, we are going to only have those 3 cuts, not 400, because we don't have 400 cuts. So if I run the code, as you can see, we have just cut these 3 parts. So this is the maximum number. This is the maximum limit. So actually, when you pass 400, it means that you are allowed to split this text, split this string by a dash at last 400 times. Now let's talk about another method called a strip. So as you can see, we have defined a string named x. And I know that this string looks weird, but this is just for demonstration purposes. So please wait a minute. Anyway, so as you can see, we want to strip some things. We want to strip some things from x. So maybe you ask, what is the meaning of strip in this context? A strip in this context means that you want to remove some things from the beginning and also from the end of the string. So this is the meaning of a strip in this context. It means that you want to remove some things from the beginning and also from the end of the string. And I'm definitely sure that you haven't understand anything because I need to, explain all these things using this example. So let's do that. So suppose that I'm Python and I want to explain how I'm going to do it and how I'm going to think about it. So suppose that I'm Python. I would say, okay, So I should go in the beginning of the string, because a strip means that I should remove some things from the beginning and also from the end of the string. So let's start from the beginning. Okay, when I look at the beginning of this string, I can see a space. Should I remove this space? Okay, how should I decide? I should go to this part because I need to strip some things, and those things are these things. So I can see a space, but should I remove this space? And when I look at this part, I can see, yes, I need to remove a space because I can see a space here. So I'm going to do so. I'm going to remove this space. Then I have a small o, and the question is, should I remove this small o? And the answer is yes, because I do have a small o in this part as well. So I'm going to remove this as well. Then I have a comma. Should I remove this comma? Yes, I should, because here I have a comma. So I'm going to remove this comma as well. And then I have a small k. Should I remove this small k? Yes, I should, because here I can see a small k. So I'm going to remove this small k as well. And then I have an underline. Should I remove this underline? Yes, I should, because here I can see an underline. So I'm going to remove this as well. And then I have a capital S. Should I remove this capital S? No. Why? Because we don't have any capital S here. So I'm not going to remove this capital S. So now we are done with the beginning of the string, because we have reached a point which we cannot move further from the beginning. We cannot remove anything from the beginning. So now we are done with the beginning. But as I've told you, a strip means that we should remove some things from the beginning and also from the end. So yes, we are done with the beginning of the string, but we should go and remove some things from the end as well. So let's start from the end. So here I can see a space. Should I remove a space? Yes, I should, because here I can see a space. So I'm going to remove this. Once again, I see a space. Should I remove it? Yes, of course. And another space, I should remove it. And then I can see a dash. Should I remove this dash? Yes, because I can see a dash here. So I'm going to remove this dash as well. And then I can see an underline. Should I remove this underline? Yes, because here I can see this underline. So I'm going to remove it. And also this is another underline. I'm going to remove it. And this is another underline. I'm going to remove it. So now I can see a D. Should I remove this D? No, because we don't have any D inside these things. So now we are done with the end as well, and we are not going to move further anymore. So this is going to be the result of this stripping process. So now if I run the code, as you can see, this is the result. So as you can see, a strip means that it is going to remove some things from the beginning and also from the end of our string. So here is another example. As you can see, I want to remove some things. In this case, those things is only one thing. It's a space. So I want to remove spaces from the beginning and also from the end of our string. So it's very obvious that the result is going to be this. We are going to remove these spaces from the beginning. Not these spaces, actually, it's only one space. So I removed that space. And also I'm going to remove these spaces from the end of our string. So this is going to be the result. So now if I run a code, as you can see, this is the result. So a strip means that we are going to remove some things. In this case, we are going to remove spaces from the beginning and also from the end of our string. And the important note is that if you don't pass anything to the strip function, by default, it is going to remove spaces from the beginning and also from the end of that string. So when you don't pass anything, by default, it is going to remove spaces from the beginning and also from the end. So if I run a code, you can see we get the same result. And as you can see, it has removed those spaces from the beginning and also from the end of our string. This is another example, which is actually a piece of a cake, because we have talked about a lot of harder examples that this is actually a piece of a cake compared to those harder examples. Anyway, so as you can see, we want to strip, and because we are not passing anything to this strip method, it is going to remove spaces by default. So in this string, we are going to remove spaces from the beginning and also from the end of the string. So we are going to remove this space from the beginning, and also we are going to remove these spaces from the end of our string, and this is going to be the result. So if I run a code, you can see here's the result, and that's it. This was one of the videos of a step-by-step tutorial playlist of Python. You can find the link to that playlist in the description below, and also we have other playlists for other topics which you can find them on the channel page.